This is Singapore Tonight.
Good evening, I'm Dawn Tan. Tonight's top stories. Several hospitals take extra precautions against COVID-19. This follows recent detection of cases amongst staff and in nearby premises. Food delivery riders size up the risk they face as they count COVID-19 infections among their ranks. Mass online meditation and other scaled-down celebrations to mark Vesak Day. It's all part of heightened safe management measures. Several hospitals here in Singapore are taking extra precautions against COVID-19, and this follows recent detection of infections amongst staff as well as in nearby premises. A housekeeper who works at Sengkang General Hospital tested positive on Monday. The hospital has disinfected all the areas that he was in. It is also conducting contact tracing and surveillance swab tests. It says the 27-year-old did not interact with any COVID-19 patients and developed symptoms a day after he was last at work. Ng Teng Fong General Hospital and Jurong Community Hospital will now conduct a second COVID-19 swab for all its staff and vendors. And this is after a number of cases were uncovered in nearby malls like Gem and Westgate. There will also be routine testing for patient-fronting staff. One expert says testing is an effective layer of defence. He says other precautions are also important.
We have to do what everyone else does, except better. Just make sure it's completely strict. Talking about mask wearing, for instance, especially around colleagues, not just at the patient's bedside. Most of the admin staff are working from home. All our dining facilities, the commonly shared dining facilities, they're all closed. But actually, the best thing to keep the hospitals free of COVID is to get the community numbers down, and then that lowers that risk of unidentified patients coming in with COVID.
Food delivery riders are taking extra precautions on top of those set down by their employers. And this comes after 8 COVID-19 infections among their colleagues in less than a week. They say that the nature of the job leaves them worried about being exposed to the virus, even as they cope with more stringent safe distancing measures. Gwyneth Teo with more.
When community cases started to surge and put Singapore on the path to heightened alert, one delivery rider decided it wasn't worth the risk.
Before the HA came out, right, the malls are so packed, sometimes, we just, I do not know how many times I go into the mall, like in a 8 or 10-hour shift. At the start of the pandemic, I think I was down with a fever. I do not want to undergo such a situation again, because to be honest, it was quite scary. It wasn't nice. I was admitted. Luckily, it turned out that it was not positive. We do not know who the person is, where he stays, until we pick up the order. And sometimes we also deliver to places like dormitories.
Mr. Su is now learning to edit videos and receives an allowance from the government while picking up a new skill. But not all can afford to give up the work, and so they soldier on.
We have to gather to collect our orders, so it's a bit risky for us. But like as I said, it's a win-win situation. We don't know who's been infected and who's not. So we just hope for the best.
Major food delivery platforms have made contactless collection the default option or even mandatory. McDonald's and KFC leave packed food on segregated tables for riders. Deliveroo and Grab have reminded riders to space themselves out while they wait to collect food. Mr. Shamsun makes sure to sanitize his hands after every delivery.
Yes, it's a plastic bag, food, but we doesn't know. So just play safe.
Safety is not the only problem they face. Even finding a place to rest and eat amid the tighter restrictions is an issue. The labour movement has been working with community partners to address that. So far, it has identified 50 such places for the riders to do so.
We're looking at malls, with carved out areas. We're looking at food courts with carved out areas as well. And we're also looking at some other community areas such as void decks, as well as open areas within the CCs that our drivers and riders, would be able to have their meals in peace. Before all these were set up, our drivers and riders, were actually having, no choice but to eat in toilets, for instance. That's very sad. Yeah, they were having to eat in car parks.
She adds that such efforts help lower the mental stress these delivery riders face in their job.
Authorities are taking action against 25 massage parlors for not ensuring that masks are worn during sessions with customers. And this comes amid a resurgence of cases, many of them unlinked in the community. 23 customers will also be taken to task. Fines range from 300 Singapore dollars for individuals to up to $2,000 for operators. Police carried out checks at some 850 massage parlors island-wide over the past 2 weeks. It says it will continue with inspections and take firm action if necessary. Operators and individuals who breach COVID-19 safety measures for the first time face a maximum $10,000 fine and half a year's jail. The punishments may be doubled for businesses if they break the rules again. Singapore has reported 3 unlinked infections among 24 new locally transmitted COVID-19 cases. 23 of them are in the community and 1 lives in a dormitory. 21 patients are linked to previous cases. 14 of them had already been quarantined and 7 were detected through surveillance. There are also 2 imported cases, both placed on stay-home notice on arrival. In all, there are 26 new cases, taking the national tally now to 61,916. The chief of the Monetary Authority of Singapore warns that large and volatile capital flows are here to stay. That's happening as investors chase higher returns outside of advanced economies facing aging populations and slower productivity growth. Now, this can cause exchange rate fluctuations, trigger financial stresses, or even worsen weaknesses in emerging market economies like Singapore's. Now, speaking at a virtual forum of central bankers, MAS Managing Director Ravi Menon says strong capital inflows could also risk fueling domestic credit and asset bubbles. This would pose risks to financial stability in EMEs. To mitigate that, he says it's necessary to use a range of tools. These include foreign exchange interventions and measures aimed at ensuring stability of the financial system.
It must be recognized that monetary policy latitude in EMEs is to some extent compromised by large capital flows. An integrated policy framework could perhaps shed light on the circumstances under which monetary policy could also serve financial stability objectives, and whether there are benefits to jointly calibrating monetary policy and macroprudential policy, as well as how this calibration should be done.
Sri Lanka is stepping up efforts to put out a fire on a container ship off the coast of Colombo. The Singapore-flagged vessel has been burning for 6 days. All 25 crew members, as well as firefighters, have been evacuated from the ship. This followed after an explosion yesterday. 2 people have been injured. Several containers tumbled into the sea. The Express Pearl was carrying cosmetics and chemicals, including 25 tons of nitric acid. It was anchored off the Colombo harbour when it caught fire. India has sent ships and an aircraft to help with the firefighting efforts. Owner of the Express Pearl, Singapore-based Express Feeders, says that it's working closely with Sri Lankan authorities to save the vessel and that cargo. It says specialised firefighting equipment from Europe has arrived and will be used in efforts to salvage the ship and its cargo. The company confirms that there are no Singaporeans among the crew. It has informed the crew's family members of the incident and will keep them updated. Express Feeders is also in touch with customers about the status of the ship's cargo. It says that it will share more once the fire has been put out and the ship is stabilised. In other regional news, powerful Cyclone Yaz has hit India, killing at least 2 people and uprooting many, many lives. Howling winds and huge waves slammed the east coast of the country that's already been stricken with COVID-19.
Devastation laid bare as a powerful cyclone battered eastern India. Tens of thousands of homes have been destroyed, trees uprooted, with villages underwater. Towns were swamped by waves the height of a double-decker bus. Cyclone Yaz made landfall in Odisha state, packing wind gusts of up to 140 kilometers. It's the second major storm to ravage the country in less than 2 weeks. More than 1.5 million people in Odisha and neighboring West Bengal had to flee to shelters, but their hopes of returning home are fading fast.
যে গরু ছাগল সবাই আছে আমরাও আছি মানুষজন দেখুন আপনারা চলুন গোটা আপনারা দেখুন পুরো গ্রাম ভেসে যাচ্ছে
Nearly 5,000 disaster workers have been sent out with aid in the two states. The cyclone is a double blow for millions in India as there is no respite from COVID-19. Several vaccination centers in threatened areas had to suspend operations, while in emergency shelters, maintaining social distancing measures remains a major challenge.
Taiwan is further tightening restrictions under its level 3 virus alert. Violators of mask wearing and business closure rules will be penalized. Restaurants can't offer dine-in services. Weddings and funerals, along with all religious activities, are suspended. Taiwan has reported more than 600 new domestic COVID-19 cases. It's struggling to inoculate residents, blaming China for blocking vaccine deals. Only about 1% of Taiwan residents are vaccinated. Taiwan is now 2 weeks into its strictest virus restrictions yet. Australian authorities are keeping a watchful eye on Victoria as the state reports 6 new COVID-19 infections. The total tally of the latest Melbourne outbreak now is 15. All of the cases carry the highly transmissible variant first detected in India.
It's good that everyone is linked at this stage, but we are concerned about the number and also about the kind of exposure sites. And the next 24 hours are going to be critical if we're going to have to make any further changes beyond the changes that we announced yesterday.
Authorities are rushing to test and trace across the city of 5 million and avoid another lockdown. They say that the number of new infections are expected to continue emerging in the next few days. Thousands of Australian rules football fans have been told to self-isolate and get tested. They'd attended the same match as an infected spectator in Melbourne. Residents in South Korea who received their first dose of COVID-19 vaccine can head outdoors without masks from July. Now, this is one of many incentives that authorities have announced to encourage more people to take the jab. Other benefits from July include exemption from capacity limits at religious facilities and access to community and welfare centres for seniors with fewer restrictions. Officials also plan to lift the 8-people gathering ban for direct family members who've had their first dose. South Korea launched its public vaccination campaign in February. It wants to achieve herd immunity by November, but the campaign has stalled due to a shortage of vaccine supplies globally. The country is battling an infection surge as new cases jump to a 2-week high. More than 700 new cases have been reported. It's muted Vesak Day celebrations here in Singapore once again. Buddhist temples and associations scaled down events for the second year running amid heightened safe management measures. The largest Buddhist monastery in Singapore, Kongming San Po Kak Si Monastery, says prayers and rituals were conducted behind closed doors and streamed live on social media platforms. The monastery had to cancel original plans such as a vegetarian food fair, but it hopes devotees would learn more through the online events.
The good thing is they will learn the proper way to do the ritual, and on top of that they will also more appreciative of how the ritual is conducted and the meaning behind the ritual itself. So this allows our devotees to apply what they have learned on the new challenges that we are facing right now in this pandemic.
The Singapore Buddhist Mission also held its first mass online meditation session to commemorate the Holy Day. More than 800 devotees gathered virtually for the program. It included talks by temple leaders and a concert featuring musicians here and abroad.
This year, we are definitely more experienced. One of the benefits of doing our event online is that we can reach up to more than 800 people to join our Vesak Day celebrations. And this is something that if you only have it on a physical premise, it's something that is very hard for us to do.
2 men are under investigation for a China official impersonation scam. It involved a staged kidnap of a Chinese undergraduate in Singapore. A 33-year-old Singaporean has been arrested. A 61-year-old is assisting in investigations. But the police suspect that the duo might be victims of the scam themselves. Yang Lei with this report.
About a month ago, a 21-year-old student was contacted by people claiming to be China police officers. They said there was a police warrant against him for money laundering offences in the country.
他们又假装很好心的帮我想办法之类的，让我切断与外界的联系。主要他们用 WhatsApp 和我联系，然后不停的和我一点一点的透露信息，然后一点点的交流，不断的取得我的信任。
Acting on instructions 10 days ago, the victim checked into a hotel here along Upper Serangoon Road. A 33-year-old man gave the victim $500 and a cell phone. All this time, the victim was alone in the room. He was then told to pose in front of a video call while gagged and blindfolded. He was told this was for an X-ray, when in fact it was supposed to look like a kidnap. With the footage, the scammers added a message and sent the video to his parents in China on Thursday morning.
小子别怕啊，不会伤害你的。听好了，只要你父母啊，他把钱拿出来啊，还给我们，剩下的你就不用担心，好不好？
The ransom asked was for 1.2 million Singapore dollars. By this time, the victim, again acting on instructions, moved to a 61-year-old man's HDB flat in Clementi. There, he said he watched TV, ordered food, and played cards with the homeowner's wife. The victim's parents had already told the Singapore police they couldn't contact their son 4 days prior to receiving the scammer's message. And when they did receive it, they got in touch with the authorities here again. The victim was found within 7 hours. In fact, he was woken up from his nap by the police.
警察刚刚找到我的时候，我甚至有一点不太相信警方，然后警方就是跟我说我安全了，然后带我到警察局做了个笔录，然后就什么事也没有。
Fortunately, his parents did not pay the ransom. Police say the 2 men involved are unrelated. They may have been told that they were implicated in a crime themselves and needed to help out in this case. The man who passed the money to the victim earlier in the hotel allegedly received $1,000 to help stage the student's disappearance. The other man in the Clementi flat may have been led to believe that he was helping to house an important witness for a supposed police probe. The Singapore police has this message for the public.
The China police, Interpol, and other overseas law enforcement agencies have no jurisdiction or powers to conduct operations in Singapore. They also have no powers to ask members of the public to help them with any form of investigation without the approval of the Singapore government.
The police add that people should ignore calls from those who claim they're overseas officials.
2 Singaporeans have been arrested for suspected drug activities. The 45-year-old man and 31-year-old woman were arrested yesterday. More than $940,000 worth of illicit drugs were seized. 2 children of the woman were found playing outside the residential unit prior to the raid. The 11-year-old boy and 10-year-old girl have been put in the safe custody of a next of kin. Over 10 kilograms of drugs were seized, including heroin, ice, cannabis, and ecstasy tablets. Cash amounting to $28,000 was also recovered. The Central Narcotics Bureau says that the drug haul is enough to feed about 2,700 heroin abusers, 1,450 ice abusers, and 355 cannabis abusers for a week. Investigations are ongoing. Singapore's national football team is training in Dubai ahead of 3 World Cup qualifiers in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. It's the first time that those taking part in a team sport will be competing overseas since this pandemic started. The usual centralized training in Singapore was scrapped in favor of an overseas one. 3 brothers are also in the squad. following in the footsteps of another famous family. Liang Lei with this report.
18-year-old Yilhan Fandi is a regular starter this season for his club Young Lions. Having featured for Singapore's under-16s, he now has a chance to shine brighter after being called up to the national squad.
It means the world to me and my family, obviously, because when I was young, my dream was always to play for the national team. And here I am, hopefully going to get a chance to play. So I'm really happy. I'm going to give my 100%.
Also in the squad are his two elder brothers, Irfan and Ihsan Fandi. The last time three brothers were called up to the national team at the same time was a Quas about half a century ago. Singapore currently sits third in Group D of the AFC World Cup qualifiers. They face Palestine, Uzbekistan and Saudi Arabia over 9 days, all to be played in Riyadh, chosen as the centralised venue for the upcoming World Cup qualifiers. The national team's last training session in Singapore was in March. The squad is now in Dubai for centralised training. They will also face Afghanistan in a training match this Saturday before heading off to the Saudi capital. This outing in the midst of the pandemic means it's packed with precaution. Players and staff will be swabbed before flights and games, even though most of them have been vaccinated. The itinerary is kept to hotel, training ground and game day stadium.
I have to change my plan because the players' condition is not consistent. I intend to tell them we just play. We don't need think any other things. We have to play with confidence, like same as before COVID.
The last time Singapore played an international game was in November 2019, where they beat Yemen 2-1, with Ihsan among the goal scorers.
That's Singapore Tonight. Headlines anytime at cna.asia, and you can find us on Facebook, YouTube and Twitter as well. Good night.